galaxy was wide, endless, and ancient. Civilizations had risen and fallen for millions of years, each leaving behind their ruins, their scars, and their stories. But in all of those endless ages, there was one story whispered in fear more than any other. It was the story of humanity. The aliens spoke of it not in history books but in myths, the way children might speak of monsters under the bed. Most did not believe it anymore. They thought it was only an old tale, a warning meant to frighten the weak. But then in a forgotten corner of space, a sensor array began to tremble. A small fleet of alien ships, scouts from the Great Armada, drifted near a ruined star system. Their orders were simple: watch the skies, scan for resistance, prepare the path for conquest. They had done this countless times before. World after world had fallen to their armada. None had ever stood in their way. But on this night something changed. At first, the scanners caught only static. A shadow appeared, faint and hard to measure. The operators leaned closer, their hands uncertain, their voices uneasy. It was too large to be a fighter, too heavy to be a transport, and yet too strange to be one of their own ships. The numbers shook on the screen. Power readings surged like nothing they had ever recorded. One of the operators whispered a single word that froze the room: human. The commander laughed at first, though his laugh was hollow. Impossible, he said. They are gone. They were only myths. Our ancestors destroyed them long ago. But still the shadow grew stronger. And still the scanners refused to calm. The fleet tightened formation. Voices filled the command channels. Identify the target. Cross-check the data. It must be an error. But it was no error. The ship revealed itself slowly, emerging from the dark, like a beast stepping out of a cave. It was massive, larger than any warship the Armada had ever built. Its hull was scarred, rusted, but still alive. Plates of steel layered one over another, weapons lined in endless rows, towers rising like fortress walls. And on its side, half hidden by time, were numbers and letters carved in a human language. A relic, but a living one. The alien crews fell, silent. A warship, a human warship. No one moved, no one fired. They only stared. The stories had said these ships were not machines but monsters, engines of war that carried the fury of an entire species. They had said that when one appeared, entire fleets would break, planets would fall, and empires would burn. The commander tried to speak, but his throat tightened. His second-in-command whispered, "Orders, sir?" But the words sounded far away. The ship did not fire. It did not even charge its weapons. It only drifted forward, steady and calm, like a predator that did not need to show its teeth. Across the Armada, panic began to ripple. Captains on distant ships whispered questions to one another. Was it real? Was it truly human? And if it was, what did it mean? The commander ordered them to hold their ground. "It is one ship," he told them. "One ship cannot stop us." His voice shook as he said it. Deep inside, he knew he was lying. The warship's presence filled the void with silence. No comms, no signals, no threats, only silence. And somehow, that silence was worse than any weapon. One of the younger officers could not take it anymore. His voice broke through the comms. "If the stories are true, we must retreat. If this is a human warship, then we are already dead." The commander snapped at him, but his anger felt weak. Even he remembered the tales told by his elders, stories of a time when humanity rose from a small world, fragile and young, yet fought against the great empires of the galaxy. Stories of how their warships appeared without warning, how they fought with a will no machine could measure, how they broke fleets that outnumbered them 100 to 1, stories of how they vanished, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. No one knew what had truly happened to them. Some said humanity had destroyed itself. Others said they had gone beyond the stars, into some higher realm. But now, here in this forgotten system, the story breathed again. The alien armada, proud and endless, found itself staring at a single ship, a ship that should not exist. a ship that carried a ghost in its hull. The warship drifted closer. Details became clear. The guns were old, but their design was terrifying. Cannons large enough to split moons. Launch bays that could unleash swarms of fighters. Armor thick enough to survive 1,000 strikes. It looked like a relic from another age, but it also looked indestructible. The commander gave the order to prepare weapons. He wanted to believe that they still had power, that their armada, made of thousands of ships, could crush one vessel. But even as the order went out, he saw doubt in every eye, fear in every voice. The warship had not fired. It did not need to. Its silence was enough to break them. In that moment, the galaxy remembered the old truth. Humanity did not need to announce itself. Humanity did not need to roar. The simple sight of one of their warships was enough to turn courage into fear, and fear into panic. The shadow of the warship filled the screens. No one breathed. No one moved. They could only watch as it came closer, carrying with it the weight of a legend too heavy to ignore. The commander's last thought, before the silence swallowed him, was not of victory or duty. It was of terror. Because he understood at last why the galaxy had buried the memory of humanity so deep. It was not because humans were gone. It was because even the memory of them was too dangerous to survive. And now, that memory had returned. Rising tension, the enemy armada stretched across the void like a chain of steel and fire. Thousands of ships stood in formation, their weapons charged, their engines glowing. They had faced countless battles before, yet this night was different. The shadow of one ship had broken the rhythm of their hearts. The human warship drifted. Closer, not fast, not slow, but steady. Every alien officer stared at it, and every mind filled with the same thought. Why had it come? The commander barked new orders. Tighten the lines, hold positions, ready weapons. His voice carried authority, but his eyes betrayed his fear. He kept staring at the scanners as if wishing the ship would vanish. It did not vanish. It grew larger, heavier, more real. Some captains whispered to each other in private channels. They asked if they should retreat. They asked if the old stories could be true. But their words never carried courage. They carried only fear. One by one, the officers remembered the legends. Humanity was not supposed to exist anymore. The galaxy had erased their name, buried their history, silenced their echoes. And yet, here was the proof, drifting like a ghost through the dark. A single ship, alive against all odds. The younger soldiers tried to laugh. It is old. Look at its hull. It is broken, rusted. But even as they mocked, their voices cracked. They knew the truth. Age did not weaken this ship. Age made it stronger. It had survived battles before their empires were even born. Silence spread through the fleets. The only sound was the hum of engines, the faint pulse of weapons charging, and the quiet breathing of thousands who no longer believed they were safe. The commander clenched his fists. He had to keep control. It is one ship. We are thousands. Do not forget our power. Do not forget who we are. His words filled the channel, but they did not fill the hearts of his soldiers, because the human ship was not just a vessel. It was a memory. And memories were stronger than weapons. The warship's lights flickered. For a brief moment, its guns shifted position, almost lazy, almost casual. The alien fleets flinched as if struck. Some ships pulled back without orders, their captains unable to hold their nerve. The formations broke. The perfect wall of the armada began to fracture. The commander shouted for discipline. Return to your lines. Hold formation. But his words fell into chaos. Fear spread faster than orders. On one cruiser, an officer whispered, "What if there are more? What if this is only the first?" His captain silenced him, but the thought spread like poison. If one ship had returned, could there be others hidden in the void? Could there be an entire fleet of ghosts waiting to strike? The warship did not answer. It did not need to. Its silence was more terrifying than any declaration of war. Somewhere deep in the lines, a captain could not bear the pressure. His ship fired. A single beam of light cut across the void, striking the human warship's hull. The beam burned bright, but when the glow faded, the warship remained untouched. Not a scratch, not even a mark. Gasps filled the comms. That one mistake broke the last barrier. Fear erupted into panic. Ships began to argue. Some wanted to attack. Others wanted to run, and all of them felt the same truth pressing on their minds. They were prey, and they had already been caught. The warship turned slightly, its massive frame casting shadows across the fleets. Its weapons hummed, a low sound that vibrated through the void like a growl. In that moment, the commander knew control was slipping away. His soldiers were no longer fighting an enemy. They were fighting their own fear. And fear was winning. The warship had not spoken a word, had not sent a signal, had not unleashed its fire. But already, the armada was breaking. Already, the legends were becoming reality, and the worst part was still to come. First confrontation. Alien armada stood in broken silence. Their formations wavered, their unity crumbled, yet none dared to fire again. They knew the truth in their bones. The first shot had done nothing. The human warship remained untouched, drifting with the calm weight of a predator. The commander's voice thundered across the channels. "Hold your ground, do not break, we are many. It is only one." He repeated it again and again, but the words were no longer enough. His soldiers had seen the beam vanish into nothing. They had seen the ship absorb it as if it were smoke. Still, pride demanded resistance. An empire could not bend to a shadow. A fleet could not surrender to fear. So the order came, attack in waves. Small squadrons would move first, probing the human warship, forcing it to reveal its power. The rest would hold back, waiting to learn its secrets. The first wave advanced. Sleek cruisers darted forward, their weapons glowing, their engines burning. Like stars, they formed a circle around the human ship, their voices sharp with false courage. "We have it surrounded," one captain declared, but even he could not hide the tremor in his words. The human warship remained still. Then the aliens fired. Dozens of beams cut across the darkness. Hundreds of missiles streaked through the void. Explosions lit up the sky. For a moment, the universe was fire. The commanders leaned forward, desperate to see the result. When the flames cleared, the warship stood exactly where it had been, silent and unbroken. But something had changed. Its guns were no longer quiet. Without warning, one turret moved. A single cannon, massive as a tower, shifted its gaze. It fired once. A flash of white light tore through the void. The nearest alien cruiser vanished in an instant, reduced to dust before its crew could even scream. The armada froze. Another gun turned, another flash. A second ship disappeared, its wreckage scattering like ash. Then a third. 3 ships gone, in less than a heartbeat, destroyed as easily as sparks in the wind. Panic broke the silence. Voices screamed across the comms. "It cannot be real. Retreat. We must retreat." The commanders tried to hold control, but the terror spread like fire through dry grass. The second wave surged forward, desperate to overwhelm the warship before fear consumed them. Fighters poured out in swarms, small ships buzzing like insects around the giant predator. They launched torpedoes, plasma bursts, energy nets, everything they had. The sky turned into chaos. The warship answered with calm precision. Its defenses lit up, invisible walls shimmering into place. The fighters' weapons struck, but nothing pierced. In response, the warship opened its launch bays. From its shadow, smaller human crafts unfolded, sleek, sharp, and deadly. They moved faster than anything the aliens had ever seen, cutting through the fighter swarms with ruthless silence. The aliens watched in horror as their squadrons dissolved. Ships spun out of control, crews screamed, formations shattered. No matter how many came forward, the human ship's fury erased them with ease. The commander of the armada tried one last time. "Hold! Regroup! We are still more!" But even He no longer believed his words. He saw the truth with his own eyes. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. And the human warship had not yet unleashed its full power. The silence returned, broken only by the cries of the defeated. The wrecks of the first waves drifted in the void, burning slowly, fragments of broken fleets. The human warship did not chase the survivors. It did not need to. It simply moved forward, slow and steady, as if nothing had happened. The aliens understood then why their ancestors had feared humanity. It was not just their weapons, it was not just their ships. It was the will inside them, the calm, relentless will that could turn one warship into a nightmare that shattered empires. The commanders looked at their dying armada, at the shadows of their broken fleets, and felt the truth closing around them. The legends were alive. Humanity had returned, and this was only the beginning. Escalation. The void was filled with wreckage. Broken cruisers drifted without power, their flames dimming into cold sparks. Fighters spun out into silence, their pilots gone. And yet the human warship still moved forward, calm as if none of it had happened. The alien commander stood frozen in his command chair. His screens showed the chaos, squadrons gone, lines broken, the armada scattered like sand. He could not deny the truth anymore. This was not a battle. This was the slow death of his entire force. Still, pride forced him to act. He opened the main channel to every ship in the armada. His voice shook, but he forced strength into it. All units, fire everything, now! For the first time, the full power of the armada came alive. Beams of every color lit the void. Missiles poured out in endless waves. Cannons thundered, plasma flared, and the sky itself seemed to split open. The combined strength of 1,000 ships struck at the human warship in a storm of fire. For long seconds, the galaxy shook with light. Even the stars seemed to fade beneath the fury. The alien crews held their breath, praying that their combined power would finally bring the ship down. When the light cleared, their prayers turned to despair. The warship still lived. Its hull was blackened but unbroken, its guns cold but waiting. The storm of weapons had done nothing. The silence that followed was worse than any sound. It felt like judgment, heavy and merciless. Then the warship answered. Its cannons turned as one. Dozens of towers roared to life, their barrels glowing. A wave of fire ripped outward, sweeping through the alien fleets like a scythe. Entire squadrons vanished at once. Cruisers tore apart in chains of explosions. Battleships cracked in half, their cores screaming before silence swallowed them whole. The armada dissolved. Ships broke formation. Captains screamed for retreat. Crews abandoned orders. Some fired blindly into the void, striking their own allies in panic. Others shut down engines and drifted, hoping the predator would pass them by. The commander shouted for control, but his words were lost. His soldiers were no longer listening. They were no longer a fleet. They were prey, and prey always runs. The human warship advanced through the chaos. Its guns did not waste fire. Each strike was perfect, each blast carving holes through the largest ships with surgical precision. The void filled with wreckage and fire, but the warship never slowed. Across the surviving channels, voices wept. It cannot be stopped. It cannot die. We are finished. The fear spread faster than light, faster than commands, faster than hope. The younger officers whispered the old legends again. They said the humans fought not with numbers, but with will. They said their ships carried the anger of entire worlds. They said no empire had ever stood against them and lived. Now those stories were alive again, and every alien could feel it. One battleship, desperate for escape, turned its engines to flee. Its captain screamed for hyperspace jump. But before the drive could ignite, a single human cannon spoke. In one strike, the battleship was erased, its shadow gone before its signal reached the stars. The message was clear. There was no escape. The commander stared at his dying armada, his eyes wide with helpless fury. He had led fleets across galaxies. He had crushed rebellions. He had erased worlds. Yet here he was powerless, against one ship, against a memory. The Human warship moved deeper into the heart of the armada. It did not hurry. It did not chase. It only advanced, calm and relentless. With each step, the armada broke further until nothing was left but scattered survivors and the echo of fear, and still the warship had not spoken a word. The final revelation. The battlefield had turned into a graveyard. The proud armada that once stretched across the stars now floated in ruins. Ships that once carried banners of power were silent husks, their lights gone, their crews lost to the void. Only scattered fragments remained, frightened vessels drifting in the shadows, too broken to fight and too weak to flee. Through it all, the human warship continued forward. Its engines glowed with steady light, its hull scarred but undefeated. It moved like something eternal, a shadow too heavy to resist. Every alien eye watched it, waiting, fearing, praying that it would pass them by. The commander sat in silence. His hands trembled on the console, his eyes fixed on the giant vessel. He had no orders left to give. His fleet was gone, his empire broken. For the first time in his life, he understood the word his ancestors had whispered in fear. Human. The eye. Warship slowed. For a long moment, it did nothing. The void was quiet, filled only with the faint crackle of dying ships and the soft hum of the predator. Survivors held their breath. Captains waited for the killing blow. The silence stretched until it felt like the universe itself had stopped. Then at last the warship spoke. A single transmission spread across every channel, reaching every ship, every ear, every heart. The voice was not loud. It was calm, steady, and colder than the void itself. It spoke in a language most aliens did not know, yet somehow they understood every word. Humanity remembers. The words carried weight heavier than any weapon. They were not a threat. They were not a promise. They were a reminder, one that reached across the stars and into the bones of every living being. Humanity had been forgotten, erased, buried in myths. But now, the truth had returned. The survivors trembled. Some broke into sobs, others whispered prayers. A few stared in silence, their minds shattered by the meaning of those words. If humanity remembered, then vengeance had returned. If humanity remembered, then the galaxy's empires were already doomed. The warship did not explain. It did not fire again. It simply turned its massive frame, its engines igniting with quiet power. Slowly, it drifted back into the darkness from where it had come. The wreckage of the armada burned behind it, but the warship did not look back. One by one, the alien survivors began to realize the truth. The ship had not come to destroy them. It had not needed to. It had come only to remind them. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity, but humanity had not erased the galaxy. They had simply waited. They had watched. And now they had returned. The commander sat frozen in his chair, unable to speak, unable to move. The last words of the warship echoed in his mind. Humanity remembers. He knew that those words would spread faster than light. The survivors would carry them to their empires. Stories would grow. Fear would rise. And soon, the entire galaxy would tremble. The human warship vanished into the stars, leaving nothing but silence. Yet that silence was louder than any battle cry. It was the silence of a legend reborn, of a shadow cast across every world, every empire, every fleet. The commander closed his eyes. For the first time, he wished he had never lived to see this day, because he understood what most of the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity was not gone. Humanity had only been waiting. And now, the waiting was over.